I would certainly say that I, like most moviegoers, do see the quote-unquote heart that Pixar films have, that extra bit of care that makes Toy Story 2 so much more memorable than Shrek 2, that extra bit of ambition that makes Wall-E or Up seem wondrous while Drek like Ice Age or Despicable Me seems half-baked, and to be honest, to date I have only loved one non-Pixar computer-animated movie, and DreamWorks didn't make it. But even with a love for most of Pixar's films, Cars and likely Cars 2 of course being the exception, I've never understood the heaping helping of praise their possibly most beloved film, Finding Nemo, receives. Finding Nemo is a mess, an inconsistent mix of hilarity and tragedy, a lurching, rudderless excuse for fish-themed adventure. And I'm not talking just a few scenes here, I mean the whole damn movie is profoundly broken. So steel yourself. Here we go. Finding Nemo begins with one of the most horrid tragedies ever committed to film. I mean, kid in the shitter, girl in red dress, Schindler's List stuff here. Marlin and his wife Coral have just purchased or somehow got this wonderful anemone house overlooking the beautiful drop-off into the ocean. It's extremely unclear how fish real estate works, but, Marlin and Coral discuss how the neighborhood is good, the school district is excellent, and the place is really nice, but Coral is apprehensive about living here and asks, do we really need all this space? Which implies she did not want to move here. Then Marlin and Coral check on their kids, who are still in eggs, and of which there are 400 of. Marlin says he wants to name half of them Marlin Jr. and half of them Coral Jr., which I guess implies that he is somewhat indifferent to the lot of them. Coral says she likes the name Nemo, and Marlin says one can be named Nemo, but the rest are Marlin and Coral Jr. Then the two go inside their anemone home and have a cute little romp around the house where they recall where they first met and how fun it was and good times and whatnot, and Coral goes back outside the anemone. The drop-off is silent, and Coral is staring into the soulless eyes of a barracuda. Marlin whispers to Coral, the kids will be fine, which is either a lie to save his wife, or a truth about how the barracuda won't eat the kids if they hide and the barracuda won't notice them. Coral, out of fear, dives toward the little cave her 400 eggs are in, and I don't think she could have really did a damn thing. So this really just means she was overcome with motherly fear and desperation. Marlin tries to attack the barracuda to save his wife, and he is knocked unconscious. So now, while Marlin blacks out in the house he apparently made his wife move to, even though she was apprehensive, his wife Coral dies a terrible death, a gut-wrenching death, where she either failed in her eyes to protect her 400 children, or perhaps watched them die, or hell, maybe dies thinking her husband is dead, or her kids are next. This is heavy fucking shit. This opening is so dark and gloomy that it saturates the rest of the film, creating a stitched-together hodgepodge of great humor and terrible tragedy. Marlin wakes, maybe hours later because it's dark, and I thought, well, the school district might be great, and the neighborhood might be nice, but the emergency response in the area sucks ass. So no one else in this neighborhood cared or tried to help. So Marlin wakes, cold and alone. He bursts from his anemone, desperately looking for his wife, and searching the cave his 400 children's eggs had occupied. Everyone is dead, all of them. He swims out of the cave and cries, and this is where he finds one egg fell out of the cave, probably when the barracuda was wildly jabbing his gaping jaw into the cave's mouth, devouring Marlin's wife and kids. Marlin picks up the egg, which is cracked, and lovingly holds his only living family, Nemo, whom he promises he will never let anything happen to. Then we solemnly go to the title screen. Now, there is no argument you could make that would make this okay as the start for a fun family comedy. Not a damn thing. The opening is very clear on a lot. Thorough in its devastation. Pixar is always thorough, but here it really harms the film. Marlin made his wife move, at least he sees it that way. She didn't want to, and he made her, and on the first day they lived here, 400 of his family died. That's fall down drunk, into drugs, devastation. This informs the character, informs the audience of what Marlin has evolved to be in the time that passes. So Marlin is woken, probably from a drunken stupor, by his son Nemo, who has a little fin on the side of the egg that was cracked by the barracuda, probably a constant reminder to Marlin of his loss. It's Nemo's first day of school. It's established that Marlin is obsessively protective of Nemo, and that Nemo seems relatively adjusted to his dad. This is a kid's film, kind of, so I guess it's not worth getting into that his dad's protective environment for Nemo should seem normal to Nemo, since it implies Nemo doesn't get much time away from his dad. Nemo is adjusted so that the audience can relate to him, and that's fine. The movie tries hard to gloss over the tragedy with humor. Marlin asks if Nemo wants to wait a year or 6 before going to school, but Nemo is ready. It's established that in spite of Marlin's obsessiveness and Nemo's annoyance with it, that Marlin and Nemo have a decent relationship and love each other. On the way to school, there is a lot of establishing of what will happen in the film and what kind of character Marlin is. He keeps correcting where Nemo swims, holding his fin, and blandly answering Nemo's kid-like questions about sharks and sea turtles. Marlin is a pill, and since he has moved from his last home, they're obviously still in the same area though, he has kept to himself, and it's unclear if anyone here knows of his tragedy. We meet Mr. Ray, and Nemo, annoyed, eventually is able to pry himself away from Marlin and get off to school. Mr. Ray seems to be a science teacher, as he is constantly naming ocean shit and using human scientific terms, further blurring the line of where the humanity of these anthropomorphized fish begins. Is it a tragedy to lose 400 kids if the circle of life kills most of them anyway? They have school systems, but they don't have emergency response? Does Marlin work? Also, no other fish have 400 kids, so is it just clownfish? Would he be taking 400 of them to school today had they lived? Anyway, Mr. Ray takes Nemo off on his first day of school, and Marlin learns that though he has signed no waiver, Nemo and his class are taking a field trip to the drop-off. Marlin freaks out because, that's where his family was murdered and eaten. Nemo is amazed by the beauty of the reef, and the class arrives on their teacher bus at the drop-off. It takes Nemo like a whole 5 seconds to fall in with the bad kids and wander away from the class. Maybe Marlin's paranoia is justified. So Nemo and the bad kids go smoke some cigarettes in the boys' room, or the equivalent, which is to fuck around near the dangerous drop-off. There's a boat near the drop-off, and the kids dare each other to see who can get closest. They dare Nemo, and Nemo says no because his dad doesn't want him to, and just then Marlin bursts out and yells at Nemo because he thought he was going to go out there. They argue. Nemo says, "I hate you." Mr. Ray shows up, and Marlin says he's going to bring Nemo back next year, and to be defiant to his dad, Nemo goes out and touches the boat, and of course, he is captured by divers. Marlin tries to go out and do something to save him, but a different scuba dude takes Marlin's picture and it blinds him. Both scuba guys get back in their boat and barrel away. Marlin, desperate, follows the boat and loses it quickly. He aimlessly wanders, and you can see the terror on his face, which of course makes sense after the harrowing opening and how protective Marlin is. He failed here. He drove his only son away with all of his overprotection, and now he's gone, likely forever. He rams into a blue tang named Dory, and this is where the film is supposed to get humorous. It does, but holy fuck, think about it. Would you be having even a little bit of a good time if your only living child was just kidnapped, and the last thing your son said to you before being abducted was, "I hate you"? So Dory is introduced, and she's a very funny character. Marlin just sort of runs into Dory, and she says she saw the boat Marlin was chasing and will lead him toward it. Marlin follows, but Dory tries to lose him, and we learn that she suffers from forgetfulness, and that she forgot she was leading Marlin somewhere. Dory might be mentally disabled. Dory is a character given hilariously little context. Marlin hits her and they go off together. It's unclear if she has some sort of a conservator, as she seems unable to handle her own affairs. I think she ran away from her parents, who watch over her and are feeble and old and probably died of fear that their poor mentally impaired baby is cold and alone or dead in the big ocean. It would fit the way the film presents family tragedy. So Marlin and Dory start their fun adventure, an adventure which is always in the shadow of a terrible kidnapping. Now, I admit that when I first saw Finding Nemo, I liked it, but I didn't love it. And it's only in rewatching it that I find that I dislike many aspects of the film. One of these aspects is how Marlin and Dory's adventure proceeds, and I'll try to look at that without the looming darkness of Marlin's predicament. Marlin and Dory's various run-ins with sea life are all completely random and often not resolved. Dory explains her short-term memory loss, and Marlin tries to leave, and they run into Bruce the shark, who's just watching them. So they go off with Bruce on his weird little fish are friends not food meeting. No context, they just needed an out after bringing up Dory's problem. So they go off with Bruce, who is a fun character. Bruce meets rather randomly in a sunken submarine surrounded by mines. They have their meeting for the sharks trying not to eat fish, and the scene is cute, if morbid and terrifying for Marlin, who thinks he may die. The whole scene's only real purpose is to have Marlin and Dory find the scuba diver's goggles who took Nemo, which has some writing on it. Eventually, Bruce tries to eat Marlin and Dory and the mines go off, and well, the scene just sorta ends. No resolution. We cut to Nemo, who's been placed in a fish tank. We meet the other fish in the tank, and they are an expected assortment of oddballs, and they're all from fish stores, not the ocean like Nemo. Most of these characters are not particularly amazing. We also meet Nigel the pelican. We learn that the diver was a dentist, and they're at his office. We also learn that the diver plans to give Nemo to his niece Darla, who the starfish in the tank, Peach, describes as a fish killer. In the picture of Darla, you can see her victim from last year, who is shaken to death. This is all apparently fun. Nemo, who is a small child and is looking at the picture of a dead body, freaks out, understandably. Nemo flees from these fish and accidentally gets stuck in a water filter, and the other fish are about to help him when their insane leader, Gil, shows himself. He demands that Nemo get himself out of the filter because Gil wants to see if he can do it. Nemo does, and everything's cool, and Gil decides Nemo can help with his next crazy scheme to escape the fish tank.